Hello. Hi, everybody. It's good to see you all here. And we'll start with the verse of the Kesa. Vast is the robe of liberation, a formless field of benefaction. I wear the Tathagata's teaching, freeing all creations. Vast is the robe of liberation, a formless field of benefaction. I wear the Tathagata's teaching, freeing all creations. Vast is the robe of liberation, a formless field of benefaction. I wear the Tathagata's teaching, freeing all creations. Gata of Atonement. All evil karma ever committed by me since of old, on account of my beginningless greed, anger, and ignorance, born of my body, mouth, and thought, now I atone for it all. All evil karma ever committed by me since of old, on account of my beginningless greed, anger, and ignorance, born of my body, mouth, and thought, now I atone for it all. All evil karma ever committed by me since of old, on account of my beginningless greed, anger, and ignorance, born of my body, mouth, and thought, now I atone for it all. The fragrance of this incense invites the awakened mind to be present with us now. The fragrance of this incense fills our room, protects and guards our minds from wrong thinking. The fragrance of this incense unites us with precepts, concentration, and insight. We offer it for all beings. Homage to the Buddha. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. I go to the Buddha for guidance. I shall become one with the Buddha. I resolve that I shall each day follow the way of life he laid down for us to walk and awaken to his supreme wisdom. I go to the Dharma for guidance. I shall become one with the Dharma. The gates of Dharma are manifold. I vow to enter them all. The goal of wisdom is ever beyond. I shall attain it. I go to the Sangha for guidance. I shall become one with the Sangha in the spirit of universal fellowship, and as a member of the Sangha, I pledge myself to strive for the enlightenment of all beings. The Metta Sutta. This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duties and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm and wise and skillful, not proud and demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove. Wishing in gladness and in safety, may all beings be at ease. Whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short, or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born, may all beings be at ease. Let none deceive another or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another. Even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child, so with the boundless heart should one cherish all living beings, radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upward to the skies and downward to the depths, outward and unbounded, freed from hatred and ill will, whether standing or walking, sitting or lying down, free from drowsiness. One should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding. By not holding to fixed views, the pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being freed from all sense desires, is not born again into the world of suffering. May I be happy and well. May no harm come to me. May I learn compassion. May all my friends, family, and those I love be happy and well. May no harm come to them. May they learn compassion. May all those troubled in body, mind, and spirit be happy and well. May no harm come to them. May they learn compassion. May all those who have hurt me in body, mind, and spirit be happy and well. May no harm come to them. May they learn compassion. May all those whom I have hurt in body, mind, and spirit be happy and well. May no harm come to them. May they learn compassion. May all my enemies be happy and well. May no harm come to them. May they learn compassion. May all living beings be happy and well. May no harm come to them. May they learn compassion. "20-minute silent meditation tonight." And I'll set the timer, so if you're muting your sound during meditation, you can safely set your timer for 20 minutes. Buddha nature pervades the whole universe, existing right here now, and offering flowers, candles, and incense, hearing the Dharma and training the mind, great merit is attained. We dedicate this merit to the great Master Shakyamuni Buddha, the all-pervading and everlasting three treasures, to the 16 guardians, all protectors of the Dharma and their relations throughout space and time, to all ancestors of this Sangha and all beings in the Dharma world. May penetrating light dispel the darkness of all ignorance. Let all karma be resolved in the mind flower bloom in eternal spring. May the Dharma body maintain strength and health, and years of life be lengthened for all teachers of this Sangha. May their vows be fully realized, and may they live in perfect peace with Buddha Dharma. We pray for those suffering from violence and those who grieve for them, for those living in oppression, for those imprisoned who should be free, for all refugees from violence, hunger, and catastrophe, man-made or natural. We pray for the health and well-being of those suffering from diseases of body, mind, or spirit, those working toward the healing of those afflictions. May they be serene through all their troubles, and may we realize the enlightened way together. Sabe sata sadahantu avera sukajivino katang punya phalang maiham sabe bagi bhavantu te. May all beings always live happily, free from animosity. May all share in the blessings that spring from the good we have done. How is everyone? Hi, Catherine, Nina, Daphne, Matthew. It's good to see you all. So, almost through the 8 foundations of joy from the Book of Joy. This time around is compassion. If I can get open to the right page. There we go. So I talk about compassion all the time, as I'm sure you know. Most of you probably heard me talk about compassion many times before. It's always interesting to hear it from another perspective. And, the Dalai Lama also talks about compassion a lot. And in fact, he's even said in talks, he talks about sometimes about how complicated Buddhism can be, and, other religions and the difficulties of faith and all of that kind of stuff. And he says, all you need is compassion. He says, my religion is compassion, which is, kind of a really nice sentiment. I mean, he's studied a whole lot of Buddhism. He has, when he was, I think, 23, something like that, he finished all of his training, and with, because he ordained when he was a kid. He was identified as the Dalai Lama, as the next Dalai Lama, I think at age 2. And I think he became a novice at 6, and so started training. He was 15 when he was asked to go ahead and assume leadership of Tibet, because the Chinese, the Maoists were a big, long political history there between China and Tibet, and who owns what and all that kind of stuff. But the Maoists were coming in, and so he would normally have assumed the leadership of the country a few years later, but because the situation was so urgent, he was asked to go ahead and assume the leadership of Tibet. And just a few years after that he ended up having to leave Tibet for Dharamsala because of the Chinese uprising the uprising against China in 1959, I think it was. And and he ended up going to India to Dharamsala. So, if anybody has a right to be angry, it's probably him. I mean, there were terrible things done during the crackdown on Tibetan attempts to maintain their independence. Monasteries destroyed, monks executed, things like that. The Dalai Lama's bodyguards were actually taken out of the monastery and executed in public, and that kind of stuff. But he still maintains compassion for the Chinese, and has talked about Mao as being the greatest teacher he ever had because it tests his compassion. It's very easy to be compassionate for people you like in situations that you're happy with. It's very difficult sometimes to be compassionate toward people, especially when they're doing something that's pretty clearly, harmful. But anyway, so and Archbishop Tutu, same thing. There were, he was very instrumental in the activism against apartheid. And there were terrible things done in South Africa against people who were trying to be equals in their own country. So it's not even equals, but citizens in their own country, treated as human beings. So the Dalai Lama is talking, and he's talking about the importance of compassion here. And he says, even other social animals have the same concern for each other. Scientists have found that when two mice are together, if one is injured, the other will lick it. The injured mouse that is being licked by another mouse will heal much faster than a mouse that's alone. This concern for others is something very precious. We humans have a special brain, but this brain causes a lot of suffering because it's always thinking, me, 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 me. The more time you spend thinking about yourself, the more suffering you will experience. The incredible thing is that when we think of alleviating other people's suffering, our own suffering is reduced. And this is the true secret to happiness. And that's really kind of, aside from the scientific aspect of it, I mean, this recognition that compassion, that not only are we supported by and recipients of compassion, if we pay attention, we see that we get supported in a lot of ways by compassionate people and compassionate systems and so on. But also, if we practice compassion, that saves us a lot of suffering. So the Dalai Lama, he's the head of a Tibetan school of Tibetan Buddhism. I'm not a Tibetan Buddhist, but all, many Buddhists, if not most Buddhists, acknowledge his significance in the world and revere him on one level or another. The Tibetans consider him the incarnation of Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva of compassion. So I thought it would be interesting to read for you probably maybe one of the most significant explorations of the workings of the Bodhisattva of compassion in the world is in the Lotus Sutra, and it's chapter 25 of the Lotus Sutra. And I'm going to read just a fairly short section of it, and then I'll talk about it just a little bit. So those of you who go to White Sands, the big, tall, standing figure out there, that's Quan Am. Quan Am is Vietnamese name. Kuan Yin is one of the Chinese names, depending on what Chinese dialect you're looking at. Avalokiteshvara is the Sanskrit name. Chenrezig, the Tibetan name. All the same Bodhisattva. And the name translates as hearer of the world's cries, or in this particular translation of the Lotus Sutra, they call it perceiver of sounds. The idea being that the Bodhisattva of compassion hears appeals from suffering people to be saved from suffering, and responds to those cries. So the one who hears the cries of the world is one of the translations that you often hear. I sort of like that one. So this is in, there's a chapter in the Lotus Sutra that's all just dealing with who this is and why pay attention to this Bodhisattva. And the Buddha is explaining this, that he's been asked by another Bodhisattva, why does he have this name? Well, if you're in Lake County, you're not that far. There actually is there's a Vietnamese monastery somewhere near Gainesville that has large Buddha statues, I have heard. I don't know the name of the place, and I don't know what kind of services they have or anything. But Matthew, if you came across for things like the one-day retreat, which is coming up here in just a couple of weeks, November 14th, I think it's whatever that Sunday is. I think it's the 14th. They start at 9:00 in the morning and finish up mid-afternoon. And it's a really good time to get introduced to White Sands if you haven't already been there. But make a day of it. Go over there. So, of course, depending on where in Lake County you are, you could be on the far side of Lake County and it's a major trek. But I'm not that far from the border of Lake County. So anyway, so there's a section of verses where the Buddha is answering this question: why is this person called the hearer of the world's sounds? He says, if living beings encounter weariness or peril, immeasurable suffering pressing them down, the power of the perceiver of sounds, wonderful wisdom, can save them from the sufferings of the world. He is endowed with transcendental powers and widely practices the expedient means of wisdom. Throughout the lands in the 10 directions, there is no region where he does not manifest himself. Maybe I should put my glasses on, then I can see. I won't be able to see the computer as well, but I can see the book. In many different kinds of evil circumstances, in the realms of hell, hungry spirits or beasts, the suffering of birth, old age, sickness, and death, all these he wipes out bit by bit. He of the true gaze, the pure gaze, the gaze of great and encompassing wisdom, the gaze of pity, the gaze of compassion, constantly we implore him, constantly look up in reverence. His pure light, free of blemish, is a sun of wisdom, dispelling all darknesses. He can quell the wind and fire of misfortune and everywhere bring light to the world. The precepts from his compassionate body shake us like thunder. The wonder of his pitying mind is like a great cloud. He sends down the sweet dew, the dharma rain, to quench the flames of earthly desires. That's so powerful, I think. And basically, what the Buddha is saying is that compassion is there for us. We're all available to compassion. If we look around, at the ways that we're supported, we find that we're touched and helped in many ways, and that the Dharma is available to us. And if we open up to what the Dharma has to offer us, we'll be saved from the rounds of coming and going. That doesn't mean that we're not going to experience, if you say Namo Avalokiteshvara, you're not going to ever get the flu, or you're not going to lose loved ones, or any of those things. Okay, but it means that the suffering you experience, if you recognize the transformational power of compassion, if you recognize the presence and the of the dharma, and put it into practice, that your suffering will be lessened. That's not unique to Buddhism. I mean, every religion really emphasizes the importance of compassion. And it's not just that we are recipients of compassion, but that when we practice compassion, we suffer less, like the Dalai Lama said. If we stop focusing on the me of our suffering and look to others to help them, our suffering is diminished. It's very true. If you don't believe me, try it. A lot of our suffering, if we walk around judging everything, walk around deciding who's good and who's bad, mostly who's bad, because we don't really, if we want to be judgmental, we don't really walk around looking at who's good so much as we look at who's bad, who's not living up to our expectations, those kinds of things. Who deserves to be punished? Well, we create a lot of suffering for ourselves, not just for other people, the people that we're judging, but for ourselves, for having this judgmental mind. If instead we look around and go, who can I help? And we recognize our own suffering in others. We realize we're experiencing stress together. And because we're experiencing stress together, we can experience freedom from stress together. If I can help you, I can help me. If I can help me, I can help you. Perceiver of the world's sounds, pure sage, to those in suffering and danger of death, he can offer aid and support. Endowed with all benefits, he views living beings with compassionate eyes. The sea of his accumulated blessings is immeasurable. Therefore, you should bow your head to him. So, again, this is not bowing our head to a human being. It's not bowing our head to some spirit in the sky. This is bowing our head as an act of compassion and acknowledging the transformational power that compassion has, not just to transform our world, but to transform our hearts. So, to have compassion for someone who has harmed you is a challenge. But we've talked about forgiveness recently. We know that carrying resentment around is a huge burden. If we can have compassion for someone, it makes it easier for us to let go of that resentment. If we know that if someone needs our help and we can offer that help, support in some way, that's usually going to make us feel better, to do that. I just finished this 21-day, I won't call it a course. There's an organization called Service Space. I won't go into the details about where they come from, but it's a nonprofit and they do interesting things to help promote compassion and goodwill and things like that in the world. And they did this 21-day thing where you would read a teaching from an interfaith perspective every day, and then there was a practice to do. And every day the teaching came from a different religious tradition. Some of them pretty new traditions. It would be kind of a stretch to call them traditions, but basically, every religion, Christianity, Judaism, Buddhism, Hinduism, Jainism, Baha'i, et cetera, they all emphasize compassion as being important. And you got to figure there's a reason for that, and the reason for that is compassion is what makes us human beings, or at least what allows us to be human beings, what allows us to be human. Does that mean there are no humans who are not compassionate? No. But human society exists as it does, largely because we have this ability to cooperate and look out for one another. and that's what the Dalai Lama was talking about at the beginning of that. Many animals are also show compassion for one another, not even sometimes not just others of their own species, but others that they get to know. They'll look out for one another. They'll eat each other too. I mean, that's part of being alive, and all of that. But that thing about the mice taking care of other mice, that happens. Dogs take care of other dogs and so on. And I think, the higher the order of intelligence, the more likely they are to be compassionate. And the reason we can have things like cities and, airplanes and cars and stuff like that. So we figured out how to take care of each other, how to look out for one another. Doesn't mean we don't have to look out for ourselves. One of the discourses from the Pali Canon that I like to talk about is the bamboo acrobat piece, where there's this pair of acrobats, the master and his apprentice, who's their act is they get a big bamboo pole and they climb up the pole and they balance on the tip of it and they do tricks. And, they had this discussion about, should I look after me and you look after you? Or should you look after yourself and I look after myself? Or should I look after you and you look after me? And, this conversation, the Buddha says both, look after yourself and look after the other. And if they both do that, then they're both safe. And so that's kind of part of how we should look at compassion is, yes, I need to take care of myself. I need to keep myself safe, but I also need to look out for you to the extent that it's reasonable to do so. I should, things like wearing masks, if I wear the mask, I reduce my risk of infection. I also reduce your risk of infection, so that's, that's kind of part of the process. This is a practical aspect of Buddhist practice, but it's also one with great spiritual benefit. So anyway, that's probably enough on compassion for one night. Any comments or questions? So if you're writing something, I'll keep talking for just a minute. So I will not be at White Sands this Sunday, the October 31st. I will also not be celebrating Halloween. I don't have any plans. I don't reject Halloween, just don't have any plans. But I don't have to be anywhere speaking this Sunday, so I won't. I've got other stuff that I'll be doing. But I'll be back at White Sands on the 7th. And then, as I mentioned, the one-day retreat is on the 14th of November. And if you want to go to that, call White Sands and let them know so that they know how many people are coming. So anyway, thank you all for being here. And I hope that you're doing well. And I'll see some of you tomorrow. And some of you I'll see next Wednesday. Have a good evening.